Hey there, and welcome to the A.D.K channel. I am, of course, Dave. There's no Andy or Kirk with me, unfortunately, this evening. But with me tonight, I have the band The Red Light Acid Test. What a name. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Firstly, we obviously caught you on Friday night. Want to say great show. And I'm not saying that in the way that some people go on stage after and go, great show, mate, when they don't mean it. I genuinely do mean it. We've all had that experience. You know when you've had a bad show and someone says that. But no, I genuinely was very, very, very impressed with your performance. And to be honest, all the bands on Friday night absolutely blew it out of the water. I thought everyone played amazingly well. We're going to have a clip from that show at the end of this video, and also some feedback from Kirk and Andy. I have no idea what they said, so it'll be as much of a surprise for me as it will be for anyone else watching, because I was too busy running around changing cameras over and everything. They were off talking about it and getting drunk. So it'll be interesting to see what they said. But that'll be at the end. For now, let's get into the talking about the band. So Red Light Acid Test, you've only been together since, what, 2019, I believe?
2018, I think we...
2018.
And then the first gig probably wasn't until 2019. So yeah, it took a little while to get going, but yeah.
It's been that sort of time. Okay, so do you want to take us through how did the band come together? And very importantly, I really like to know is the band name. It's an unusual band name. Where did it come from? What was the thought behind it?
So, I mean, the getting together process was our bassist Nick, who actually sadly isn't with us this evening. He's working.
Right.
Had, a whole bunch of projects, ideas, songs in his head that had been there for other bands who'd been in earlier on and just hadn't ever worked out, and wanted to give them a go. And so he put up just a classified ad, basically. Highly unexciting, but yeah, and then...
It was on Gundry, wasn't it? Something as...
there were a few sites, but yeah.
Yeah, it was Gundry. Yeah.
And then there was another drummer before Tom, guitarist before Ollie. It didn't quite work out. And then this lineup's been
Sort of
around that, yeah. And then the name, we went through like a few iterations. Names was tricky for us.
It took ages.
It was a long time of we had no name, and then we had a name for a week, and then we said, oh no, everybody's got that name, let's go to this name.
And it was anytime we thought of anything good, you Google it, and there's 5 other bands who have thought of that.
Yeah. There's 400 bands in the States with this name, or like half of this name, so let's choose something else.
Or you fix on a word, and then it would just pop up everywhere. So I kind of took a bit of a David Bowie approach and just started messing words around.
Right, okay.
And trying to find something that wasn't obvious. But so what we stuck with, the Red Light Acid Test, we kind of, it alludes to sort of kind of the light and the dark side of the 60s, the kind of experimental music scene. You had the Merry Pranksters and the Acid Tests, but then also at the same time you had MK Ultra doing the same thing with very, very, very sinister intentions, and that kind of it worked out in my head, and I was like, yeah, I like that. And then no one's going to be stupid enough to pick it as well.
It's certainly unique.
So yeah,
that's sort of what we wanted,
Yeah,
and we all sort of liked the lilt of like the multi-syllables. I roll into bands like Queens of the Stone Age and things like that, which is like half a sentence of a band name. We were like, hang on a minute, it's kind of something cool and unique about this, and it's noteworthy and it's memorable, and it's not just like a short, like the band. We're like a name. We didn't want to go. I think we decided between all of us that all of the bands, they've all been taken now. They've all been done. There's no unique the somethings you can have now. So we went a little bit left field and settled on this in the end.
Do you find if people have never heard you before and they just see your band name, do you feel that people come in expecting a completely different style of music to what you actually do?
I think so. I think the name probably doesn't necessarily match what we sound like, but also you could apply that to our own songs. Like no two songs necessarily sound the same. As a band, we kind of branch out into so many different subgenres within sort of the rock umbrella that the name kind of serves a purpose in that sense, that we're a little bit all over the place in the music we play, our inspirations and our where we're going with the sound we're trying to develop. It kind of works anyway.
Yep. I mean, I have to be honest, when I was getting the names of the bands, and I didn't know. I actually only knew one band on the bill, which was Aeronaut. So I was like, okay, I knew Aeronaut. We'd covered them on the channel, so I kind of knew what they were going to be doing. And then I've sort of had all the other band names, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be some sort of psychedelic prog rock, isn't it?
Yeah.
I said, okay. That's what Acid Test, and then I started thinking of the Grey Whistle Test, and I'm thinking, is this going to be like 70s cross stoner with psychedelic rock stuff? Is there going to be a keyboard on stage? I didn't know what to expect.
Well, maybe in the future.
Again, with our devices, it might well go that way.
I think we definitely get, with the name at least, get put into the psychedelic camp, but we're not a psychedelic band.
No, you're not.
We definitely have that thing going on. We have that psychedelic bordering on stoner thing.
Yeah, or at least like the sort of garage aspect of 13th floor LA, so that kind of feel that at the core. I mean, but yes, I think some people are like, oh,
right.
I mean, listening to the tracks that you've done, so we were pulling out. Me and Kirk were talking about it when you were playing because we were at the back, and we were just every time you went into a different riff, we were like, oh, I can hear the influence of this band. We can hear the influence of this band. We were talking about your vocals and who you're reminding us of vocally. And I think the biggest one I actually said was Velvet Revolver. It was the weirdest one, which actually, because of the Scott Weiland vocal, I was like, you actually sound a lot like Scott Weiland, from like Stone Temple Pilots vibe. Yeah. You can hear the hard rock. So you can hear everything from a Velvet Revolver hard rock to grunge elements of the sort of the early 90s grunge bands. You can like the Soundgarden elements in there, but then you can also hear elements of early to late, like mid 70s rock bands and elements of the psychedelic in the structuring of your songs, which was really nice to hear because it wasn't just like you were a grunge band coming out and playing grunge music.
Yeah,
but you can hear those individual elements, and it's one of the fun things we love to do, which is basically pick apart bands and songs and kind of go, well, where was this influence and where was this influence? And it was great to actually be able to do that with you guys, and they were all so clear and strong. But I'm sure there was a million ones that we haven't picked on. But if you were to ask, if you were thinking about people out there who supported another band, who would you market yourselves towards? So a good example of like saying System of a Down fans would like us, or Metallica fans would like us. Which artist would you kind of say would like you? I'm not saying that you sound like them, by the way. I'm not saying comparisons, but it's just a useful way, because I don't want to say what genre are you, because no one wants to put themselves in a genre, but it's one of those ones I like to know who to recommend.
I think we'd all love to say that Queens of the Stone Age fans would love us, but then that stems on like Jack White as well, but Lawrence and I come from like the guitarist. We come from like a really, really strong blues background. We both learned to play guitar from blues, so there's like the whole blues element to our bit. But we all bring different influences here. Like Tom's definitely got more of like a classical rock thing and like a normal rock thing, and then I've got like a heavier side, and then Nick's definitely got like the punky bit and the psychedelic bit. So, but we all definitely.
Well, I think we'd love to know where we should market ourselves.
Where do you market them? I have no idea. But
what do you think? We'll take your answer. You tell us.
I think anyone that's been a big fan of bands, even if it's bands like Audio Slave, just because they do a bit more of the experimental guitar sound, but still have elements of grunge in there as well. It's elements of all. Do you know what? I couldn't even pick one band out for you guys because you have so many. Alt rock in there as well. Do you know what? It'd probably be easier to pick the influences that you don't have. That would be it. So if you're into extreme death metal, they're not for you, really.
Yeah.
And subconsciously, I think that's probably what we were trying to do.
Well, I guess it's important to note that like Nick, the bass player, writes the songs fundamentally, but then he brings those to us as an idea, and then you've got 3 other people putting their stamp on the part. So the idea he has might not be the full sort of journey of the song. That song has many iterations, and it goes on this journey being sort of changed, developed, and tweaked.
Put in the closet and left.
And then you forget about it. And then
that one. Yeah.
So it's got 4 different people approaching any one song from those 4 different angles. But a song on a Monday will sound different to the song that comes forward on a Tuesday. It really depends on who's got what attitude and what mood towards that part of that song on that day. So it takes us off on completely weird tangents. So we're not going for one sound sonically, structurally. It's 4 different people bringing loads of different inspirations from our own individual backgrounds into any one song that could just go off on a complete tangent. So it's kind of difficult for us to know where to market ourselves, but I guess that in itself is a marketability, right? You don't necessarily want to say we are this band, we sound like this band. If you like them, you will like us. We want to sound like everyone, but also like no one.
Right.
So
okay.
Not a conscious effort, but like organically, that's just where we are.
And do you find then, with that sort of element to the band, the fact that you are quite multifaceted, do you find that you get put onto bills with bands that are of complete different styles? So you'll come out there and you'll be doing sound checks and going, they've got blast beats going on and death metal bands, and then we're in the middle of it. Does that happen to you guys very often?
We've definitely stumbled into our own fair share of metal nights, and we're like, we all agree that we're not a metal band.
Well, we synth pop.
Yeah, we've been anything from
we're going, oh wow, okay, this is going to be.
I think it's safe to say that every gig we played has been the wrong bill. also the right one, because we don't necessarily want to appeal to one crowd. We want to appeal to all the crowd. So if every gig has been right and wrong for the exact same reason.
It's definitely one thing. It's one of the things I have found with bands now, with the amount of branching out. And I was talking about this earlier on today, which is I think we used to be influenced by what we listened to, and you go back into the 90s and you would buy 10, 20 albums a year because that's all you could afford. Now we listen to 10, 20 albums a day because of Spotify. We just download, we listen to whatever, which means you're absorbing so many different styles. So every band out there now is kind of pushing in loads of different directions and has about 15 to 20 different genres within their music. Which now means when promoters go around and try and put bills together, it's an absolute nightmare for them because everyone's doing different things. But I do feel there's an element where maybe the promoters need to work a bit harder to try to get bills. I thought the bill on Friday was actually a very good bill.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree.
Everyone had grunge elements. Everyone had stoner elements. They may not. None of you all sounded the same, but you all had elements that could be interchanged. Which meant
there was still a stability to the night, because we will be to those nights where there's one band on that are very much A, and then the next band comes on and they're very much B, and then everybody leaves the room.
Well, that's it. Is that people hung around?
Yeah.
People showed up early, blessed them to come and check us out, and the crowd didn't change that much. Rather than some nights it's in shifts almost.
Yeah, it's
everyone leaves the room, and then the next sec, and you just
and that does happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it does happen. Let's talk about the track. So you've got Lose Myself, Elephant Stooge, Senseless. So you got two from 2020, 2 from 2022. Not a lot in 2021. So I'm assuming, is this down to lockdown issues and?
Correct.
Yeah. So we
like everyone else in the world couldn't release anything to record.
Exactly. Yeah. So we went into the studio in 2019.
December 2019,
and we did 3 tracks at Courtyard Studios. with an amazing engineer and producer called Ian Davenport, who had worked with Band of Skulls and Radiohead and things like that, and Slowdive. So really amazing session with him. And then we released those 3 tracks. It was over the course of 2020 we released those, and then
we came out of the studio thinking, raring to go. Let's get on the road. Let's play some gigs, promote these tracks, and then the world started.
Yeah.
So we with that thought, well, you know what, people are sitting around listening to music on the internet. Actually, this is not a bad. And otherwise, you're continuously waiting for the right time.
Right.
So we just started.
Yeah, we drip fed them out through 2020, and then 2021 was sort of the write-off year for everybody. And then we got back. We actually got back into the studio.
I think it was the summer of 21.
The summer of 21. Just as things were starting to sort of, everybody was kind of reinvigorate.
When we were allowed back in the studio.
Essentially, when we were allowed back in, we were sort of knocking on Ian's door every week saying, "Can we come back?" And so we went back in the summer. Back to the same producer, same engineer, Ian Davenport, out near Oxford, and we recorded another 3 tracks, 2 of which are released now, which were Stooge and Senseless. There's a 3rd one we're sitting on at the moment. We're hoping to release that in the next couple of months. It's called, am I allowed to say the name? Yeah, we'll say the name. It's called Bodies in Motion.
Okay.
And it's a complete departure from the other 2 completely. Well, not completely, there's still us in it, but it's a little bit more punchy. It's a
bit out there compared to the 2. Although the 2 that we have released, so Stooge and Senseless, were the 2 released out of the most recent set of 3. It is again a slight departure from that, like you said. And maybe that's intentional. So we've always gone in and picked 3, and we're like, which 3 give us a broad sort of sound and feel, sonically, rhythmically, they serve 3 different things, but because they're the same band, ultimately they're the same.
And we still want to make sure we're drawing that thread back to the original 3 that we did back in 2019. We don't want to sound like we've just completely reinvented our sound,
right,
or anything like that. And going forward, that's going to be the same again. We're sitting on a ton of tracks that we're rehearsing and working our way through and altering and tinkering with, but we also, any that we pick from that to go and record maybe another EP or maybe an album, we want to draw that tendril back to all of our original stuff. It's the same band all the way through.
So I was really, really impressed with the quality of the production of your recordings. I listen to a lot of music for this channel. And some of them will be bands that have released 4 or 5 albums. Some of them will be bands that are they haven't released a full EP, or they've on their first EP, they've just released a few singles. And there's usually a few things as a reviewer or a reactor that you kind of give away. You're like, I can accept certain things that may not be. You might not have as much. There may not be enough depth in there. The balance between the vocals and the guitars might not feel quite right. The drum sound might feel a little bit thin. You had none of those. I didn't have to excuse any of those. It actually sounded really, really polished, and I was very, very impressed. I'm sitting there going, damn, have they only been around since 2019?
Yeah.
This feels like a band that's been around a lot longer and has worked out the niches that you need to know about in the studio. So I just want to say a big props up for whoever you're getting, the guy that's doing it, and yourselves for the quality.
That's all credit to Ian there. And Ian's definitely got the mentality of it. Like, we were going into the studio thinking, yeah, I'm going to layer up 50 tracks of guitar on the left and 100 tracks of guitar on the right. He's like, no, we're doing 2 here, 2 there, that's it. That's all you've got.
Yeah.
You've got to play really well. We've got to record it really well. You've got to set up your sound really well. That's all it needs. So definitely huge credit to Ian, being like the most consummate professional for engineering. We absolutely amazing experience with him. We didn't need to layer tracks and tracks and tracks and tracks.
He made it sound
big enough.
The little bits. That was down to him.
Yeah, and then the time he spent mixing as well. Like, put it together as we went, and then made it sound huge. And then there's the dark art mastering, and we went to guys down in Bristol, Optimum for that, and God knows what they do, roads and trails and whatever.
The master button, yeah.
And it just
I think something that really went in our favour as well, stepping into the studio, is that we'd rehearsed the death out of these. We knew exactly what we didn't need to go into the studio and learn anything. We needed to go into the studio and lay stuff down. We weren't there to write stuff. We weren't there to. There was obviously bits that came up in the studio where it was like, hey, try this, or maybe you come up with something on the fly and it really works. But in its core, they were fully ready to go scratch before we even stepped into the studio. So we knew what we had to do in there. We knew the brief.
And then the first time around as well, was okay, we've got 4 days.
Right. When we had literally days.
We don't get it. That's it. I think we had 5 second time around.
No, we only had 4 days. So each time we had 4 days of recording
and one day of mixing.
Ian doing his magic on the sort of 5th and final day. So
before we rest,
that was it. It was kind of like I said. It was drilled. We knew exactly what we were turning up to do. There was no mucking about. We turned up and put in a shift and worked hard at it, and hopefully it sounds like that.
Sort of,
you know, we want people to appreciate that we put the effort into it to make it sound the way it does.
So I mean, looking back to the 4 or 5 singles that have come out already, it makes complete sense of how it's been released because of lockdown. Every band I think started doing quite similar, because normally you would drop an album and then you'd go and tour it and promote it, and you'd sell CDs on the road as well, yada yada yada. You'd sell merch and no one could do it, so the only way to really do it was to drop singles, do music videos, whatever they needed to. Is this going to be something with the next set of recordings? Are you going to go down the same route of dropping songs through the year as they're done, or are you going to drop it as an EP, an album, the next set of stuff that you're working on?
I don't think we really know. Yeah.
It's going to come down to the other point of doing it. That's what we could afford to go and do.
Sure.
And to get it how we wanted it, you know. So yeah, if we can find some money somewhere, then maybe we'll get
definitely. It's that weird triangle of opportunity, time, and inspiration, I guess. But then they all line up amazing. But you're sort of working with what you've got.
I quite like the way we've done this with the singles spread out over time. I mean, and again, I don't actually know that many people, like myself, that sit and listen to a whole album.
Right. I was just about to bring that up. It's like
I'm old school like that. I will sit and I have to listen to a record. But like most people, they want tracks. They want to make playlists. So if we just threw them all out in one go,
I hope I'm going to be wasting.
They just slide away. So maybe I feel that's maybe worked quite well to sort of give each one its time for people to actually find it and listen to it.
Right.
Yeah, we were definitely aware of sort of, I guess, like the zeitgeist, the decline of the album as a format, and people would just want to release songs in like batches, maybe small EPs. We have a great overarching plan of a set of EPs which combine into an album eventually. Maybe we do 4 sets of 3 EPs or something, and then we have a feature-length album. But we don't know what the future holds yet. Really, we're going in there with open arms. We're gonna see what's out there for us.
Okay. So, final question then. 2023. We're almost into the 3rd month. I'm sitting there about to go. Oh, we just started. I'm like, we're almost a quarter of the way through. Jesus. This year is going far too quickly already. Okay, but 2023, what's on the plan for the band this year?
So we have got a single. We have got
No
a single.
pressure.
I know, right? We've got a single, Bodies in Motion, that is coming out imminently.
We're thinking 24th of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
That was the cat coming out of the bag, maybe.
Is it not supposed to say that?
I don't know. But yeah, so that single. Beyond that, we just want to get out and gig. It's kind of been stumble start back into gigging. I think we want to get back to the stage and gig more frequently. I don't think we've played as many people as hoped.
Yeah.
So that's a big push for us. And we have maybe. This is my opinion, I don't know. We played almost exclusively London with the Club 85 gig. Was actually our first non-London gig.
Oh, okay.
And I think we're probably keen, certainly I am, to,
Yes.
to push gigs that are outside of London. And that's not necessarily a conscious decision. That was just the opportunities that came to us at the time with timings and things. So yeah, pushing out sort of further afield and taking our music to the masses.
Yeah, and that's not a detriment on to say against London. We love the places we play in London. Some absolutely amazing venues to play. But we sort of seem to be bouncing around within the M25, and we sort of want to break out a little bit, play the likes of Brighton and Oxford and Cambridge, Hitchin, of course, and as many places as we can. Really.
Excellent. Definitely check out 66 Bar in Cambridge if you get a chance. They're a great little venue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worth doing. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me today. It's been amazing to actually have a chat with you, talk about what's going on and obviously the plans for the future. And for those watching back home, stick around because we're going to now go and check them out live from Club 85 from, well, last Friday. So sort of live, recap live. And obviously we get to find out what Kirk and Andy thought of the show at the end. So thank you very much for watching. And thank you to the Red Light Acid Test.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, man. Take care now.
So we just watched the band Red Light Acid Test. Dave's inside, just wrapping up the filming. What did you think, Andy?
Well, kind of bit of a surprise opening act, to be honest. I think the name kind of was indicative of the style that they are. I'd say sort of indie rock. You'll probably sort of make comparisons to a band that you know, but yeah, I quite enjoyed that set. Actually, it was a surprise, really. I particularly like the song Don't Panic, which was in the middle, and the last song in particular, they really slowed it down and got really heavy and almost, you know, really, really good. And then they picked up the pace for the sort of finale of that track, so I enjoyed that in particular. But yeah, really good sound tonight on their set. Good musicians, yeah.
Yeah, I was impressed. I wouldn't call that indie rock to me. No, they come from a background in 1980s post-punk, 1990s grunge, and there's a bit of classic rock in there. So when I heard the first song, I was thinking, okay, this is basically just going to be a debauched version of rock and roll. Blues riffs, husky vocals, and they completely surprised me. They weren't like that at all.
Yeah, I got the bluesy bit as well. Later on in the set, but yeah.
Did you notice though, it was only the bass that was ever playing blues. The guitar player was fantastic. He has really studied the bands like The Cult, you know, that mid-80s period where you let the bass do all the low end and you can do all these obtuse high-end arpeggios, a bit like even Killing Joke. So really impressed. The vocals are very masculine, weren't they? Real grungy vocals, bit of blues there as well, but at times it almost sounded like Danzig, which again is not a bad thing. Dave said he could hear Scott Weiland in there, so Velvet Revolver, Stone Temple Pilots. Certainly the song before Don't Panic, I turned round to Dave and said this is The Cult and Alice in Chains in one song, which is a great idea. Fantastic live musicians. I thought they really enjoyed themselves as well. The energy that they created in the room, they like being on stage. There wasn't one person there that was introverted. The drummer, listen to the fills he was putting in. You know, I agree with you, the live sound, I could hear every instrument in the mix. I love how they really captured the feedback and the bleed from their instruments. Some great solos, but to me, the guitar player stood out. He was definitely not playing blues or rock and roll. He was playing 1980s alternative rock and post-punk, so really impressive. I didn't really expect them to sound like that.
Yeah, definitely like those enjoying themselves. A great kick off the night, I think.
Yeah, it was heavy, it rocked out, and there was a lot more to it. And my concern for them, I wonder if they can capture that on record. That energy that they've captured, that they've actually produced tonight, their challenge is how do you capture that in the studio? And if they do that, they're going to do well.
Okay.